Okay, so a lot's been happening today. This is my second live. Um, and in my attempt to kind of cover what's going on with obviously the mini budget and some of the news, we know that Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, is going to be speaking to Parliament shortly. And so I thought, let's watch it together. I'll provide some thoughts because I want to understand what the details of this, what it basically means, and how it's going to impact people. And where I can, I will add some commentary and some thoughts. But let's just jump straight into commentary coming live from Parliament as we speak right now um, on Sky News. Let's just play this.
It's the scorched earth policy that accompanied it to tie an incoming government into all kinds of contractual
By the way,
difficulties
Liz isn't
to
actually
make
there.
their job
The
so
Prime
much
Minister
harder.
is not
That is
actually
why
in Parliament
those on the
today
opposition
to
benches should never be
justify
allowed near
the decision that she's
government. And I would say to the honourable gentleman that the Chancellor will be along shortly to answer questions about the OBR.
Jess Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I find it absolutely incredible that the Leader of the House is incredulous that people might want to hear from the Prime Minister. As if it's like, a political game to ask the leader of our country questions. It is an embarrassing thing to assert. But in the national interest, and she so wants to hear from the Chancellor, can I ask her to be completely honest, because nothing that we've seen has been honest. I apologise.
This is what they mean by
It's not
political
of an
theatre.
individual, it's
But
which
you know,
are
people
right,
are
carry on.
people are angry
Because it wasn't an individual.
She looked
okay.
angry.
Good hope. Can I ask her, why is it, because we had to have the statement earlier at 11 o'clock while I was on the train, when you can actually get on a train, can I ask her why the markets needed reassuring?
Well, the first thing I would say to the honourable lady is I
do want to talk a little bit about that though, because what Jeremy Hunt has done over the weekend specifically and what he did this morning was designed to reassure the markets that when difficult decisions are needed, we will make those difficult decisions. And the response from the markets today have actually been positive. The pound is up, the markets are up, just the general gilt, the general bond market is actually it's trending in the right direction. So I think we've seen a positive impact from him coming in. And this is the one thing that I guess I notice about Jeremy Hunt. And people may feel that they like him, don't like him. But what he has been able to do successfully, and this has been an issue so far, he's been able to communicate in a very calm, concise, very measured way that has kind of set out clearly what needs to happen, set out very clearly what he's prepared to do, what he is going to do, and inform people of, look, this is what's up. He's been very, very good at that. And when we talk about reassuring the markets, we have to reassure the markets. It's important. I mean, if the bond market continues to, act the way it had been, that's not good for the pound. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for anything at all. So the question that she's asking there is a really, really good question. It's a solid question, but I'm really, really keen to hear some more detail about the mini budget, if he is going to give any detail here in Parliament when he finally gets there in a moment. But let's get back to commentary. I always find this so fascinating, really, really funny when they go at each other.
I fully appreciate the optics of me appearing at the dispatch box, but there is a very genuine reason why the Prime Minister is not here today. I would just stress to you that it is not, I can understand people wishing to make political hay over it. She would wish to be here, but she is not able to at this moment.
Doesn't that just stink though? I'm going to try and keep the language clean, but you messed up a lot of stuff like a kid in a candy shop, a bull in a candy shop, in a china shop, right? You messed up so much stuff. Your chancellor carried out your instructions, you fired him, and then you cannot attend Parliament to face the wrath of MPs. I mean, talk about priorities and what is important. I mean, look, when you're a leader, you have to front up when you get things wrong. You have to. And she's not fronting up. She's not taking responsibility. She's not taking questions. You know, she held an 8-minute press conference on Friday. It's pitiful. It's just sad. It's crazy.
And the Chancellor will be along shortly to answer these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Friday, the value of the pound fell after the Prime Minister walked out after just over 8 minutes from her press conference. Isn't it increasingly the case that she and her government are a risk to Britain's financial stability? And isn't it time she stopped shirking, turned out to be held accountable, or get out of the way and call a general election?
Well, I would just stress again to all honourable colleagues that there is a very good reason why the Prime Minister is not here.
Really?
And that the Chancellor will be making a statement shortly where you can ask him
Very
these
good
questions.
reason, more so than actually explaining to the nation what you've done and taking responsibility.
Given that he lasted 38 days in office and crashed the economy, can the Leader of the House confirm that the Right Honourable Member for Spilthorne, the former Chancellor, will be rejecting his ministerial severance payment?
Leader.
I would not be involved in that decision at all, but the honourable member will know who he can write to find that out.
So, did you hear that? Right? So Kwasi Kwarteng is going to get severance payment, considering that he almost tanked the economy. Can you imagine? So this is like, you've done a really crap job, but we're going to give you a severance payment anyway. Now, look, in a normal job, in a normal PLC, obviously you would also have that. Clearly, you would. But at the echelons of government, when your actions have a significant impact on the general public, some people may find that a little... It would leave a bad taste in your mouth, right? To think that he will get a severance payment. And I don't know what the severance payment would be. It will be interesting to see if that's public information. I'm sure it will be. But good question, I think.
Ben Bradshaw.
She has claimed repeatedly that the Prime Minister has been courageous. But if the Prime Minister were really courageous, she would be here today, wouldn't she? If the Prime Minister cannot or won't come and explain to the British people the reasons for her humiliating U-turns and to apologise to them, as she just did from the dispatch box, for the damage the Tories and she had done to this country and living standards and businesses, what is the point of her?
Leader of the House.
Well, I would refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave a little while ago about the Prime Minister, and again to the answer I gave a moment ago about the fact that I certainly regret the uncertainty that has added to already worries about the very volatile global economic situation, and that is why I'm keen and happy that we have a statement from the Chancellor today.
Mandeep Singh Desi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister repeatedly declared that she was working in lockstep with her Chancellor, but then very unceremoniously dumped her closest political friend at the earliest possible opportunity in order to temporarily save her job. And now, in the greatest of ironies, she has sent out the very Right Honourable Lady to speak on her behalf, who is very desperately seeking to replace her. But Leader of the House, I understand that Downing Street is hosting a reception this evening. Is it awake?
Leader.
I would say to the honourable gentleman that the motivations for the Prime Minister taking the decisions that she has have been about the national interest. He may not appreciate, and I'm not asking him to, the courage and the duty that she felt to do that, but that is why she has done it.
Chris Stevens.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to be clear, can the Leader of the House confirm then that the former Chancellor has been removed by the Prime Minister for acting on her instructions? And can she also confirm that the Prime Minister overruled the former Chancellor in the contents of the financial statement before it was made? Because if both things are true, the Prime Minister needs to resign, doesn't she?
Prime Minister.
These are not matters for me. He may wish to raise raise matters with the Chancellor. I think what our constituents want to
There's
hear
blood
from
in the
us
water.
today is
There
about
is
the
blood
issues that
in
are
the
affecting
water,
them.
I think.
And that is what the Chancellor will be speaking about whenever he gets to this chamber.
Wayne David.
Can I ask the Leader of the House, on behalf of the Prime Minister, will she simply say to the people of this country, we are sorry?
I have done so twice before in this UQ, and I will do so again. I know that this is an incredibly uncertain time for families and businesses across the country. The events that led up to the statement that is being made today are unfortunate, and I am pleased that the Prime Minister has taken decisive action to stabilise markets. And I'm sure that he will want to question the Chancellor on those detailed matters. I have done, and I'm happy to do so again.
Clive Ethel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're told that the Prime Minister is going to be coming in here in a moment to join the Chancellor when he makes his statement. So presumably propped up El Cid like Jolton Heston. But this should have been an opportunity for the Prime Minister to show leadership and to apologise to the nation before the dispatch box in the chamber of the House of Commons. Yet she's failed to do so. We've all heard the stories about our constituents up and down the country who have had mortgages withdrawn at the last minute, whose lives have been put on hold because of the reckless mini-budget that she agreed with her Chancellor. So doesn't the Leader of the House agree that it is reckless of the Prime Minister to not show that leadership today and be here in this chamber to be accountable for what she has done?
Leader.
I think the Prime Minister has shown leadership in taking the tough decision that she has, and not for the first.
Isn't this a typical political thing? A very clear question. Should she not be there to answer for her blunders? Doesn't answer, pivots to the line that she said 4 or 5 times already since we've been on here, right? It's all about taking accountability and just acknowledging. And I honestly feel as though people would be more forgiving if she was just like, listen, look, we got it wrong. We're sorry. We thought we were doing the right thing at the time based on everything that we saw in front of us. It turns out that those decisions were wrong. It turns out that it's impacted people in the country negatively. I apologize, but now we are going to forge the best way forward based on what we've learned and based on what we know now. If she just did that, I think people will be a lot more forgiving of her. It's not going to salvage her reputation one little bit, but at least it shows that there's an air of humanity and accountability and leadership, as they're saying there, if she actually did so. But this is just typical politics and typical politicians.
If our Prime Minister, when she was Foreign Secretary, had not shown leadership, we would not, alongside European nations, be giving the support to Ukraine that we rightly should be proud of.
Kevin Newland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The fact is that the Prime Minister was as courageous as the leader herself should be here answering questions this afternoon. The fact that the Prime Minister is unwilling to come to the House shows the complete lack of authority she now has. Week before the country, week before Parliament and week before the markets. Refusing to face parliamentary accountability for actions is not cowardice, it's a dereliction of duty. Does the Leader of the House not agree with me? It's well past time for this lame duck Prime Minister to go.
Leader.
The Prime Minister has come to this House many times, and in the previous role she's held, she's come to this House many times, often to talk about very difficult issues. There is a genuine reason, honourable members, why she is not here, and I hope that she will be able to join the House later this afternoon.
Then Margaret Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't going to rise to ask a question, but I've been concerned at some of the answers that the Leader of the House has given. If we are to stabilise the markets and restore some confidence in the economy, we have to have trust in the strong leadership of our country, and that is the role of the Prime Minister. She has said a number of times that there are good reasons why the Prime Minister is not here this afternoon. In the interests of total transparency and in the interests of proper accountability and to restore confidence in markets, will she give us those reasons?
Leader.
Not a chance. Not a chance. She's not going to tell them why she's not there. I will be extremely surprised if she does. Let's hear what she says, because she's just going to pivot to the line that she's been given. I'm pretty sure of this.
The Right Honourable Lady will have to be content with my assurances. I can't disclose the reasons. I have asked if I can. I'm being very genuine with the House on this matter. I hope that she'll be able to join us a bit later on this afternoon. But
let me know in the comments. Do you believe her when she says she's being genuine? I would really love to know what you think she's being genuine. Because I don't know. I don't believe it, number one, because it's the same official line and she's repeated it over and over again. But please do let me know. Let me know in the chat. Do you think she's being genuine by saying that she genuinely can't give the reasons why? She doesn't have permission to. Please let me know.
Both the Prime Minister and her Chancellor and her Cabinet are determined to take the tough decisions to ensure that we have stability and confidence going forward. And I hope that the Chancellor's statement will reassure the Right Honourable Lady.
Chris Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To be honest, I just thought it was utterly shabby to sack the Chancellor of the Exchequer for doing precisely what he'd been told to do by the boss. It's like when you sack the staff for messing up yourself. It's not on, it's bad form, it's not honourable, it's despicable. But what really worries me is that you can't really govern if you don't have a mandate. You can't govern if you can't get your budget through this House, because by definition that shows that the House does not have confidence in you. Every honourable government previous to this, at that moment when it's evident that they couldn't get their budget through, has resigned and allowed a general election. Isn't that what should happen now?
Well, what I would say to the honourable gentleman is that I think it is an honourable thing to act in the national interest, even if it is incredibly difficult personally and politically for someone to do that. And that all members on this side of the House were elected in 2019 as a team on a manifesto that we are determined to deliver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Lady has said many times that the Prime Minister couldn't come here for a specific reason at this time. So could I ask the Leader of the House, is there a reason why the Prime Minister decided she didn't want to make a statement to the House? Because she could have chosen any time to do that, even at 10 p.m. Does the Leader of the House not think that we as elected MPs and the public in this country deserve to hear from the Prime Minister?
I'm sure there will be many opportunities to hear from the Prime Minister, some in the next 20...
It's just laughable, though. There'll be many opportunities to hear from the Prime Minister. Just not today, though. You're going to have to wait until all this blows over before you even get to grill her. Not today. For that, she's wheeling out Jeremy Hunt, who seems to be more competent and has more gravitas in delivering a difficult message. Like, what could possibly be more important than answering these questions from your MPs, but also to the general public in a time like this, given everything that has happened? I mean, seriously, it's just laughable.
24 hours, but given the nature of the statement today, it is appropriate that the Chancellor delivers it.
Brendan O'Hara.
Under her desk or behind a couch, people rightly view the Prime Minister's sacking of the Chancellor as a particularly unedifying act of self-preservation, given that he was thrown under the bus for saying exactly what she asked him to say. It would be like the ventriloquist Ray Allen sacking Lord Charles for saying the wrong thing. So will the Leader of the House join me now in asking the ventriloquist dummies on her own benches who demanded that the Scottish Government follow this insane economy-wrecking policy to apologise to the people of Scotland?
Leader of the House.
Well, the first thing I would say is to thank him for the fact that the public might be concerned for the former Chancellor. But I think what they are really going to be concerned about is their own household budgets and their businesses. And that is why it is important this decision was taken, and we will hear from the Chancellor shortly. With regard to his other point, I would just point out that there are many people, including many people in Scotland, who would like the First Minister to apologise for some of her decisions.
Christian Wakeford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With her economic plan, much like a judgment in tatters, the fact she can't even be bothered to come to the chamber today.
Maybe that's coincidental. Maybe that does warrant her presence, possibly. But they should be able to say that if that is the case.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that insightful question. I repeat, the Prime Minister would normally be here, but there is a good reason why she isn't.
Listen, okay. If there is a meeting of top bankers and she needs to be there, just say she's in a meeting of critical importance to the financial markets, blah, 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 blah. Just say that. Let people know. This is half the problem. Communication has been an issue since the beginning of all of this, since the budget, right? They didn't communicate effectively. Now, talking about, protecting your own reputation and building confidence, credibility, these are key things. If you cannot communicate effectively, how are you going to repair those things that are damaged? And if it is true that there is a meeting with world bankers to talk about things, then just say that. Just say there is a crucial meeting that she needed to attend, which is why she cannot be here. The Chancellor is the one who is now taking over the new mini budget and is coming up with new ideas, a new approach. He is the best person to deliver a speech today. You will hear from her shortly on blah, 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 right? Communicate clearly. That's what we need right now.
Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it true that the member for Spelthorne first found out that he was sacked on Twitter rather than being told to his face?
Leader of the House.
Honourable and right honourable members of this House obviously want to ask all kinds of questions. But I think what the public are worried about is the cost of living issues, the stability of the markets, the energy package that we will be putting through later today to help them with the cost of living. And I would just urge all colleagues to remember the context in which we are meeting this afternoon.
Stephanie Peacock.
Speaker, is the Prime Minister on the way to the Palace?
I would very much like to be able to tell all honourable colleagues what the Prime Minister's business is today, but there are very serious matters as well as economic matters that are in the Prime Minister's in tray. And she, as people will know, she comes to this House on a regular basis and she'll be here tomorrow, but she's not able to be here at this precise moment.
Toby Perkins.
The grinning will resume tomorrow.
The markets were spooked not just by the reckless mini-budget, but also by the sense that we had a Prime Minister incapable of answering questions at the end of her press conference and without any sort of grip on this government. So it is entirely legitimate for my right honourable friend from Holborn St Pancras to give her an opportunity to come and assure the markets. Isn't the reality that the Prime Minister's inability to answer questions is just as fundamental as the failure on policy in why this country is now in an economic crisis?
I'm buoyed up by the fact that the members on the opposition benches very much want to see the Prime Minister, and I hope that if she is able to join us this afternoon, that they will give her a big cheer when she does.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I accept what the Right Honourable Lady is saying about the Prime Minister not being here, that there may be a very good reason. And I also agree with her when she said frequently that we must be acting at the moment in the national interest. For me, the national interest is what is in the interests of our people, our constituents. And what they are telling me in Edinburgh West, and I'm sure very many of the rest of you, is that they no longer have any confidence in this Prime Minister. That while she may have had the courage to sack her partner in presenting the growth plan to the country, that what they would like is for her now to have the courage to accept that she was also wrong and to step down. So will the Right Honourable Lady and her Cabinet colleagues please take that message back to the Prime Minister wherever she is?
Leader of the House.
Well, I think that the Prime Minister...
Frankly, this is where it gets
sort
of just a little bit boring. I mean, look, when is Jeremy Hunt going to be in here to actually deliver the bits that we really want to know
and she
about?
will continue to do so. Her government will continue to support her. What we need, this country needs some stability and some assurance now. And she always takes decisions in the national interest.
Davis.
Speaker, as the new Chancellor has reversed all the economic promises made by the Prime Minister in her election campaign to become Prime Minister, and that very Chancellor had the fewest votes in that leadership election, he was thrown out with 18, doesn't this show that the next Prime Minister should not be chosen by the members opposite and their wider membership, but by the British people in a general election as soon as possible to get this country back on track?
The House.
Well, I think there are serious questions that we should be examining as a Parliament today, and I hope that we will soon move on to the Chancellor's statement. I think that is what our constituents are concerned and worried about, and not about events within the Westminster bubble.
Matt Weston.
Speaker, obviously this is an absolutely legitimate question that's been put forward today. The public wants to know why the Prime Minister sacked her Chancellor after just 38 days, and particularly given that she was co-architect of the plans, the economic plans, why she herself has not resigned.
Yeah. Leader.
Tomorrow, I think we are having, or later in the week, we are having Prime Minister's questions. Members have an opportunity every week to put questions to the Prime Minister.
Patricia Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The pound is falling off a cliff, interest rates are soaring, inflation is rocketing, and pensions have been on the verge of collapse. We have a new Chancellor who is the de facto Prime Minister, and a Prime Minister who has been reduced to a spectator as her own MPs plot her removal. The Honourable Lady today, the Leader of the House, has defended the Prime Minister today, but can I ask her, does she think if she had won the leadership contest, she would have been a better Prime Minister?
Good question. Why are you going to answer this?
I support the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has shown great courage and duty over the last few days. And she has my admiration and respect for that. The Honourable Lady has various criticisms of her. I would stand up.
This is the thing, right? You can never, or they never seem to really say what they think. And look, that's an impossible question for her to answer, obviously given her role in government under Liz. But I'm sure she's sat there thinking, you really messed this up. I would have done a way better job. I mean, what would Rishi Sunak be thinking right now? I mean, imagine after the mini budget was announced and all of the chaos that ensued. Just imagine being a fly on the wall in Rishi Sunak's house. What would he have been doing? I doubt that he'll be dancing around in joyous kind of like jubilation of what was going on. But I'm sure he was like, told you so. Told you, but you didn't listen. Really interesting when you look at, and this is maybe where people will argue that politics is broken, right? How can you be honest? How can you, and to a certain degree, sometimes you've got to toe the corporate line. But at what point do you realize, actually, hang on a second, we're doing more damage than good here. And then you do things in the aid or in the benefit of the greater good.
Our Prime Minister against her First Minister any day of the week.
Charlotte Nettles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Local public services in Warrington have been slashed.
You just may, if you're just half watching, listening, hear that cheers there, well, cheers, raised voices. The Chancellor has entered the chamber. Lots of speculation about where on earth the Prime Minister is. We know that she is on the Westminster Parliamentary Estate. We saw her car going in that direction. But she is not in the chamber. Penny Mordaunt says she has a good reason not to be there answering questions this afternoon, but she cannot say what that reason is. We're expecting to hear from the Chancellor very shortly.
Leader of the House.
Well, the Honourable Lady can put her questions to the Chancellor shortly, but what I would point out is that clearly all organisations are facing rising costs. That is in part why we have acted so swiftly, and even today we'll be putting through legislation to help with the business and cost of living.
Richard Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has been in office for 6 weeks, but notoriously, even with the rigours of the budget, has yet to find time to call the First Minister of Scotland or the First Minister of Wales. Does the Leader of the House think that the Prime Minister will remain in office long enough to be able to do so?
I know that the Prime Minister takes her responsibilities.
Prime Minister is now entering the chamber and sitting down behind Penny Mordaunt.
Working constructively with the other administrations, and she will always do that.
Justin Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the markets will be reassured to see the Prime Minister is not hiding under a desk, but is here.
She is there, thank goodness.
Today. She's still got till 10 o'clock tonight to answer questions that have been asked if she wants to reassure the markets and create some stability. But I've got another question for the Leader of the House. I've been drawing in Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. Can she guarantee that the current Prime Minister will be answering them?
Leader of the House.
Yes.
Christian Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Throwing your Chancellor under the bus in order to save your skin is not a tough decision. Tough decisions are when you make them and then come along, show true leadership and ask people to come with you by inspiring them. This Prime Minister has done none of that. So why should we follow her when she has shown no leadership whatsoever but has hidden away?
The House.
I think that if you spoke to any member of the Ukrainian Parliament, they would tell you that our Prime Minister has shown leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Urgent business, we are told by the Leader, prevented the Prime Minister from coming to the House.
That response right there could get clipped so many ways. Is it a clever one, or is it a very risky one given everything that's happened domestically?
What on earth could have been more urgent than coming to atone for the economic chaos that she has wrought on pension holders and mortgage payers across these islands, and especially in Scotland, where the party opposite enjoy no mandate whatsoever? The Prime Minister thanked her former Chancellor for the excellent work that he had done. Can the Leader of the House explain, or maybe now the Prime Minister's turned up, she can the Leader of the House explain, thanked for what?
The honourable gentleman will know that the Prime Minister has Prime Minister's questions every single week. He can put questions to her there. There was very good reason, as I have repeatedly explained to the House, why she could be here. You will notice that she is present here now. And I will start listening to the honourable gentleman on democratic mandates when he honours the results of the Scottish referendum.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Leader of the House for her answers, but I'm not in the business of point scoring. Does the Leader of the House not agree that the face behind the budget is much less important than what the budget outlines? Is there confidence that the Chancellor can help business, help people stay in work, ensure that funding is available for the NHS and government departments cannot take further austerity, so that all of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland can truly be better together?
Well, the honourable gentleman is held in great affection by all members of this House and is often the finale at such UQs because he is full of common sense, and I think that what he says is absolutely right, and I hope now we will be able to hear from the Chancellor very shortly.
Point of order. Is it relevant to the questions? Order. If it's relevant to this, I will take the point of order. Chris Brown.
I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker. On a point of order, you know that for the last hour we've been listening to questions which were meant to be directed to the Prime Minister. The Leader of the House said repeatedly that there were reasons that the Prime Minister couldn't be here. If there were legitimate reasons, I'm sure every single member of this House would want to hear them. Now that the Prime Minister has arrived, would this not be a perfect
Andy,
opportunity
yes,
for her to be able
100%.
to
It is. It's comical. It's theatre at the end of the day, right? It's just.
Just to say, and let's just put this to bed. It's not for me. It's for the government to put forward the ministers to respond to urgent questions once granted. And it's not a matter for the chair. The honourable member has put the point on the record, and I know that the Prime Minister is now in her place, but we now come, before I call the Chancellor to make his statement.
Just get up and tell us. Go on.
Mr. Bradshaw, I expect better. I want you to be silent while I read this out. This is very important. Before I call the Chancellor,
it's like a bunch of school kids being told off by the headmaster.
Does somebody? Yes, and I think so. It's a few times today, and that's the third apology. I don't want any more. Before I call the Chancellor to make his statement, I'd like to point out that British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on Parliament Live TV. So I now call the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Chancellor.
All right, so let's hear some detail. This is what we're here for.
Mr. Speaker, the central responsibility of any government is to do what is necessary for economic stability. Behind the decisions we take and the issues on which we vote are jobs families depend on, mortgages that have to be paid, savings for pensioners and businesses investing for the future. We are a country that funds our promises and pays our debts. And when that is questioned, as it has been, this government will take the difficult decisions necessary to ensure there is trust and confidence in our national finances. That means decisions of eye-watering difficulty. But I give the House and the public this assurance: every single one of those decisions, whether reductions in spending or increases in tax, will be shaped through core, compassionate, conservative values that will prioritise the needs of the most vulnerable. That is why I pay tribute to my predecessors for the energy price guarantee, for the furlough scheme, and indeed for earlier decisions to protect the NHS budget in a period when other budgets were being cut. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to be completely frank about the scale of the economic challenge we face. We have had short-term difficulties. Caused by the lack of an OBR forecast alongside the mini-budget. But there are also inflationary and interest pressures around the world. Russia's unforgivable invasion of Ukraine has caused energy and food prices to spike. We cannot control what is happening in the rest of the world, but when the interest of economic stability means the government needs to change course, we will do so. And that is what I've come to the House to announce today. In my first few days in the job, I've held extensive discussions with the Prime Minister, Cabinet colleagues, the Governor of the Bank of England, the OBR, the Head of the Debt Management Office, Treasury officials, and many others. The conclusion I've drawn from those conversations is that we need to do more quickly to give certainty to the markets about our fiscal plans and show through action and not just words that the United Kingdom can and always will pay our way in the world. We've therefore decided to make further changes to the mini-budget immediately, rather than waiting until the medium-term fiscal plan in 2 weeks' time, in order to reduce unhelpful speculation about those plans. Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful for your agreement on the need to give the markets an early brief summary this morning, but I welcome the opportunity to give this House details of those decisions now. We've decided on the following changes to support confidence and stability. Firstly, the Prime Minister and I agreed yesterday to reverse almost all the tax measures announced in the growth plan 3 weeks ago that have not been legislated for in Parliament. So we will continue with the abolition of the health and social care levy, changes to stamp duty, the increase in the annual investment allowance to £1 million and the wider reforms to investment taxes. But we will no longer be proceeding with the cuts to dividend tax rates, saving around £1 billion a year, the reversal of the off-payroll working reforms introduced in 2017 and 2021, saving around £2 billion a year, the new VAT-free shopping scheme for non-UK visitors, saving a further £2 billion a year, or the freeze on alcohol duty rates, saving around £600 million a year. I will provide further details on how those rates will be uprated.
Just let us sort this telephone out. I've just switched it off, all right? It's off. OK. Sorry, Chancellor. Carry on. It was this.
I will provide further details on how alcohol duty rates will be uprated shortly. Second, the Government is currently committed to cutting the basic rate of income tax to 19% in April of 2023. It is a deeply held Conservative value, a value that I share, that people should keep more of the money they earn, which is why we have continued with the abolition of the health and social care levy. But at a time when markets are asking serious questions about our commitment to sound public finances, we cannot afford a permanent discretionary increase in borrowing worth £6 billion a year. So I've decided that the basic rate of income tax will remain at 20%, and it will do so indefinitely until economic circumstances allow for it to be cut. Taken together with the decision not to cut corporation tax and restoring the top rate of income tax, the measures I've announced today will raise around £32 billion every year. The third step I'm taking today, Mr. Speaker, is to review the energy price guarantee. That was the biggest single expense in the growth plan and one of the most generous schemes in the world. It's a landmark policy for which I pay tribute to my predecessor, my right honourable friend from Spelthorne, and will support millions of people through a difficult winter, reducing inflation by up to 5%. So I confirm today that the support we are providing between now and April next year will not change. But beyond next April, the Prime Minister and I have reluctantly agreed it would not be responsible to continue exposing the public finances to unlimited volatility in international gas prices. So I'm announcing today a Treasury-led review into how we support energy bills beyond April next year. The review's objective is to design a new approach that will cost the taxpayer significantly less than planned, whilst ensuring enough support for those in need. Any support for businesses will be targeted to those most affected, and a new approach will better incentivise energy efficiency. There remain, I'm afraid, many difficult decisions to be announced in the medium-term fiscal plan on October the 31st. When I confirm that we will publish a credible, transparent, fully costed plan to get debt falling as a share of the economy over the medium term, based on the judgment and economic forecasts of the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility. I'd like to thank the OBR, whose Director Richard Hughes I met this morning, and the Bank of England, whose Governor Andrew Bailey I've now met twice. I fully support the vital independent roles both institutions play, which give markets, the public and the world confidence that our economic plans are credible and rightly hold us to account for delivering them. But I also want more independent expert advice as I start my journey as Chancellor. So I'm announcing today the formation of a new Economic Advisory Council to do just that. This council will advise the government on economic policy, with 4 names announced today: Rupert Harrison, former Chief of Staff to the Chancellor of the Exchequer; Gert-Jan Vlieger from Element Capital; Sushil Wadhwani of Wadhwani Asset Management; and Karen Ward of JP Morgan. Mr. Speaker, we remain completely committed to our mission to go for growth, but growth requires confidence and stability, which is why we are taking many difficult decisions starting today. But whilst we do need realism about the challenges ahead, we must never fall into the trap of pessimism. Despite all the adversity and challenge we face, there is enormous potential in this country with some of the most talented people, 3 of the world's top 10 universities, the most tech unicorns in Europe, one of the world's great financial centres, incredible strengths in the creative industries, in science, research, engineering, manufacturing and innovation. And all that gives me genuine optimism about our long-term prospects for growth. But to achieve that, it is vital we act now to create the stability on which future generations can build. The reason the United Kingdom has always succeeded is because at big and difficult moments, we have taken tough decisions in the long-term interests of the country, and in a way that is consistent with compassionate Conservative values. That is what we will do now, and I commend this statement to the House.
I now call the Shadow Chancellor.
All right, okay, cool. So, He didn't really say anything much different to what he spoke about this morning when he gave his speech then. So the core things are that there is a wholesale rollback on the mini budget, pretty much. Anything that hasn't already started the legislationary process in Parliament is basically being scrapped. So that means corporation tax is gone. So that's going to be kept at, it's going to be going up to 25% next year. The reduction in the basic personal rates of your tax thresholds is not going to reduce to 19%. It's going to remain at 20%. What else did he say here? A load of reductions on things that they're getting rid of on the dividend tax, because when you reduce the 45p, that would have made that. So dividend tax, that's going to stay at $1 billion. IR35, that's going to save another $2 billion. VAT, free shopping for people visiting, $2 billion. Alcohol duty, $600 million. So across those four things, £5.6 billion is what they're saving there. Income tax, keeping that at 20%, not reducing it down to 19%, is going to save $32 billion. Then obviously the big thing, the really, really big thing, is the energy price guarantee, which is this piece of legislation, or the proposal that Liz introduced literally the day after she became Prime Minister, which was the £150 billion that will cap unit prices at £2,500 for an average household. That is effectively gone. So all the help that we've got thus far, so the £400, which is basically being rolled out this month to people, £67 reduction through October and November, then £66 from November all the way through to March. That still stays in place. But what this essentially means is that now we're going to have those same conversations that we were having 2 months ago about how much energy prices are going to increase and the impact that's going to have on households here in the UK. That is it's a massive, massive call to make. But I understand why he's done it, because you should listen to the words that he's used in his delivery. He's used words like, confidence, stability, starting today, difficult decisions. All of that is designed to give the markets confidence so that we don't have the issues with government gilts, and we don't have potential issues running off the back of that with the pound falling, and then even further interventions from the Bank of England on interest rates. I mean, Andrew Bailey was saying yesterday that they've got to the juncture where they realise, and they're signposting this already, that more aggressive action is going to be made, or is going to be required, on monetary policy, tightening, increasing the interest rates as a result of that. And he's very much waiting to see what this new budget is going to look like. This has and is going to provide a lot of comfort to markets, because effectively this isn't borrowing alongside tax cuts. This is the opposite. 150 billion quid, we're not borrowing that. Taxes are going to be going up. Not only that, and he didn't really mention much about this in this speech, but there are going to be spending cuts. And if you listen to him this morning, maybe look at the live that I did this morning where I covered a little bit of that, he was saying basically no department is going to be left untouched. He's going to be asking every department in government to find efficiencies, to cut. So the big concern is this, and this is where you really get into some sticky territory, and you have to kind of appreciate the potential pain that is coming along. And that is in the fact that energy prices are going to continue to go up. There's nothing we can do about that. In Europe, they're thinking about rationing energy, right? We've already heard maybe a couple of weeks ago that it is a possibility that we might have 3-hour blackouts here in the UK. Now, when you think about the energy problem as it is, you have got low supply for high demand. The way you spread that supply out based on the demand that you have is by rationing, by cutting down your usage. Liz has lost all credibility in everything that she said, in everything that she's done since becoming Prime Minister. She said, she was asked, can you rule out power cuts and rationing of energy? She said yes, didn't even blink. That's not within her gift to be able to do. And really, if we're going to really tackle energy prices, we have to start having conversations about energy usage, rationing, because it is the only way we're going to be able to really realistically bring the cost of that down. Now, the question is, if there isn't going to be a £150 billion, I guess, bailout or support for households, so you've still got that concern. You've got interest rates rising, mortgages, rents increasing. You've got that concern. Spending cuts is just going to be another cherry on top of a really horrible cake that people are going to have to contend with. So what are you going to do on the energy side? The boss of Shell was saying you need to put in another windfall tax. Liz has always been very she's tried to avoid it as much as possible. I think Jeremy Hunt is probably the kind of person who will be like, listen, we need to do this, and he will do it. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the budget and what further detail we're going to get on the 31st of October. So far, he's done a great job in delivering this news in a way that is measured. He's framed it right, in my opinion. He's basically said what needs to be done in a way that's very plain, simple, and easy for people to understand. And he's done that, number one, to inform the public, but more importantly, to address the markets. And I think the proof is in the pudding. The pound today is up, the FTSE 100 today is up. The gilt markets have not been as crazy as they have been. So to a certain extent, this is a good start for Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor. What I fear is the pain that's going to come later on. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Bank of England decide to do come November 3rd after they hear further details on October 31st and the details from the Office of Budget Responsibility as well. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what the actual plan looks like in more detail. And it will have to balance. I mean, there isn't a choice. It has to balance at the end of the day. And I'm sure he's going to do what is required to ensure that it does balance. I just it's going to be very, very painful. It really, really is. And this is the challenge that we basically face now. So I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Has he done a good job? Is he doing a good job? What there is the conversation around the general election. Look, this is not a political channel in any way, shape, or form. Many people are speculating and fearful of what the impact of a general election would do in terms of market confidence, which is kind of the same thing that we're facing right now. I guess them lot in Parliament are going to have to sort this out and figure out what they need to do and all this kind of stuff. I just hope it is going to be in the interest of the general public. It is going to be in the national interest and not so much about political benefit. But I don't know. I don't necessarily have that much faith. And I'm a half full type guy, half glasses full type guy. And even I look at this and I'm just like, but who knows? I don't really know what to say, to be honest. It's entertaining to say the least, watching this and seeing how this basically transpires. I doubt we're going to get any more details watching the questions that ensue off the statement here. I mean, just looking at the screen right here, just as I paused it, clearly there's a lot of them stood up who want to ask questions and stuff. I would encourage you, watch it, see what you think. But ultimately, there are some big calls being made. I did mention on the podcast this morning, if you're not listening to the podcast this morning, maybe it's worthwhile having a listen. It's on Spotify, all of the good podcast outlets, that I thought that the budget was going to change wholesale. And that's the beginning of what we're seeing. The mini budget from 2-3 weeks ago, that no longer exists. We're going to see a wholesale new budget on October the 31st in terms of detail. And it's going to be interesting to see how it's all going to play out real world in terms of people it's going to impact and what it's going to mean for the economy, what it's going to mean for everyday people in society. But there we are. So guys, I'm just going to ask you, as I did on the live last night, answering people's questions. one of the ways that you can help me for doing these kind of lives to make sure that other people who may find this interesting, so that they can see it, is by hitting the like button. Really, really important. What typically happens is when a video goes live on YouTube, if it's not engaged with and it's not interacted with, they just assume that it was a really rubbish video, and then the algorithm doesn't push it, which means that other people don't actually get to see it. So I know that there's about 85, 90 people on here at the moment. If we can get that like button up to about 50, I'll be greatly appreciative of that. I know that there are some comments coming through right now, so let's have a look and see what you guys are saying. What's the sentiment out there of you guys having followed this? Serenity's saying here he has inherited a mess. So what we can do is try to be as realistic. As for us, we need to learn to get used to very difficult days and years ahead. I would definitely agree with that. I think the era of low interest rates is completely and utterly gone now. I think it's going to be our responsibility, and I've said this a number of times, we've got to take responsibility for our own personal finances. You know, there was someone on the live yesterday, and I've seen this in a number of my comment sections, stating that actually, whilst this might be a really horrible situation for us to deal with, if you were to jump in a DeLorean and go back to the 1970s, there's a lot of resources that we have access to right now that wouldn't have been available to people in the 1970s. And I think that is a really valid, strong point. It's not the best situation. It's not an ideal situation. And yes, there's going to be pain, and we wish things could be better, but we can't do anything but deal with the circumstances that we are faced with right now. And that means taking personal responsibility for all of the stuff that we deal with when it comes to our personal finance. And, debt is often the biggest drain on most people's finances. You need to have a debt plan. If you can transfer to not balance transfer credit cards, for example, or if you can consolidate onto personal loans, if you consolidate onto your mortgages, nothing should be off the table right now. You really need to think about how you can try and preserve as much of what you're earning right now and giving yourself a buffer, giving yourself a cushion. If that is not possible in the realms of the situations that you're facing right now, then the next priority has got to be finding ways to generate additional income. Because ultimately, I know that is hard, and I know that people don't want to work 2-3 jobs, and they don't want to, put themselves and work themselves to the bone. And it's very much down to individual merit in terms of your own circumstances. But I think for a lot of people will find things a lot more easier to navigate if they're able to increase their income. And look, there are lots of ways that you can do that now, and it could be something as simple as, if you've got a car parking space, renting that out. You've got a car that you're not using on your drive, renting that out, selling things that you don't need. Trying to generate more income now is going to be more important than ever, given what needs to be done from a budget fiscal point of view for our economy. I've been obviously keen to keep people up to date with everything that's happening, because whilst this is very much political in its sourcing and the way this is being kind of fed into the media, it intersects with what we talk about here on the channel. It intersects with finances. It intersects with money. It intersects with investing. It intersects with everything. So it's very hard to dissociate those two things when the root cause of the decisions that we're going to need to make from a financial point of view stem from political situations like this. So it's not something that I normally do on the channel, and I was very apprehensive about doing this on Friday when I first covered the first one, but you guys seem to like that I am commenting on this and trying to provide a bit of commentary to kind of bring it into the relevance of personal finance and investing. And I'll try my best to do so. A lot of this stuff, particularly when you start looking at the gilt markets, you need really gilt traders and people who are trained in that arena. That's not really my area of expertise. I'm a financial advisor and mortgage advisor. I worked in financial services for 15 years, but not on that investment side when it comes to like trading and all of that investment management. But what I will try to do is I'll try and find experts who can comment on that on the channel. And I've already reached out to a few people today and over the weekend. So hopefully we'll have someone who can talk about bond markets, all that kind of stuff a bit later on. On Tuesday, tomorrow, There is a video that will be going live on the channel that will be talking about pension funds. Are pension funds safe? We've talked a little bit about gilts there. We know that there's been some issues around gilts. But the question is, should you be worried if you're invested in the pension right now? There's a lot of misinformation out there, so much of it, scaremongering people. And you've got to appreciate to a certain extent that when you are watching people on YouTube and TikTok, on Instagram, a lot of people who are creating content because clickbait. They can get a few likes, few views, all that kind of stuff and grow their following, not because they have necessarily any experience or any substance to actually provide to the conversation. So you need to be discerning of the content that you're consuming right now, particularly right now with things the way they are. So please be mindful of that. But watch the video tomorrow. I give my 2 cents and we talk about the role of a pension fund, risk that a pension fund basically faces. We talk about asset allocations and the different asset classes and why they use gilts within the pension. I also talk about, well, look, if you're in these 3 scenarios, maybe these are the things you need to consider. That will come out tomorrow at 6 p.m. I appreciate every single one of you for being here. Thank you so much. I am on pack lunch tomorrow afternoon from 12:30. I can't say what we're going to be talking about, but I can probably guarantee you that it's going to be relevant to this. So if you catch me, message me, let me know that you watched. It will be always nice to hear when people have watched the program, when I've been on it. And yeah, do provide any feedback. I'm just going to scan very quickly the comments here. This one. So I haven't. Well, he hasn't mentioned it here, but this was all about capping banker bonuses and possibly getting rid of Solvency II. He hasn't mentioned this here, so it may stay still. I don't know. We're going to find out on October 31st, I would imagine. Good point here. Just wait till the strikes kick off, demanding pay rises when people can't pay their rent or live normally. I think we're already starting to see that, to be honest, and I think that will be something that will continue. Let's see what else we've got here. Just scanning. Bear me one moment. I know that this is a joke, but it is a funny one. We need Sunak now with his Bitcoin. Oh dear. Something like this. General public just wrote off in the long run as a result of recent announcement. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. It really, really is going to be difficult. So this is a very relevant comment. Unpleasant but credible, and we need credibility, and that's what he has successfully been able to do. He only got appointed on Friday, so between Friday and today, he has restored some kind of credibility, which is going to give the market confidence. That is a big, big tick. Who you attribute that tick to, I don't know. I mean, I definitely wouldn't attribute it necessarily to Liz, although she did install him. But I think he has done a good job if you're measuring him on the impact he's had in terms of restoring some market confidence. It's a big tick. What happens from here on out, obviously, we've got to monitor it. This is a good point as well. What's been done cannot be undone entirely. If you look at mortgage rates, a lot of the providers have been waiting to listen to this. They'll be waiting again until October 31st because the forecast for mortgage rates have come down since the mini budget. People are now forecasting rates will be about 5%, but no mortgage lender is going to start releasing mortgages based on this assumption that rates will be at 5%. They're going to wait until October 31st before they make any real decisions. They're going to wait and see what happens. They're going to wait and see what happens with the Bank of England on November 3rd, see if they push prices, interest rates up any higher. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with mortgage rates. Some of this may already be priced in. I would imagine most of it is as well. But I think come mid-November, we'll have more of an idea of where mortgage rates are going to be. But some of the damage that has already been done is done. We're not going to be able to reverse any of that. I think I maybe just answered this in the comment that I just gave there. What's going to happen to people who need to renew their mortgage rate soon? Look, you can start to shop around for your mortgage 6 months before it ends. So you may not have a lot of rates or options available right now. I would say just hold fire until you know. But then if rates do go up, it's the is the risk you got to take. So I would still encourage people, go and have a look at the market, see what is available. If you can get an agreement in principle, you can lock something in. If something then becomes a little bit better priced a bit later on, you can make a decision at that point. But you can start shopping around for mortgages 6 months before your deal is set to end. Let's talk about this. I mean, I think yes, but at the same time, risk management is very, very important. I mentioned this on the live yesterday. There's a lot of people talking about investing and throwing a lot of money in right now. And I just wanted to remind people, and I will remind people here yet again, that, if you are worried about what's going on, I mean, this is not, we're looking at our local domestic market here, but the States is also facing massive challenges when it comes to inflation, albeit the dollar is getting stronger. But, there's some stuff that's happened over the past week with China, which is just mind-blowing, which could have a real detriment to the dollar. We'll maybe talk about that a bit later on. So if you are putting money into the market, just make sure you're putting money into the market because you want to, not because social media is telling you that you should be pound cost averaging in and buying cheap deals without any risk management whatsoever. Make sure you're comfortable in doing what you're doing. That's the most important thing in times like this. And I said yesterday, and I'll say it now, it is completely okay if you decide to take a pause during times like this from investing and think, oh no, you know what? I'm going to wait and fill things out. That's completely fine if you want to do that as well. Thank you, Cardano. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Let me just scan very quickly. Things on there. Okay, cool. That's it. We're done. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you later on. Enjoy your evening and enjoy